What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo with Mike Golick Jr. That is me. With me, as always, the best dressed man in podcasting, Brandon Jarrell Newman. Brandon, what's going on?
Cap. Hey, Mike. Hi, friends.
Yes, and I should say we are coming bearing a few more gifts than usual. As always, download, subscribe, rate, and review Gojo wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel as well, so you can see the bright smiling faces that are with us today, because we went with a special reunion episode of a podcast that you may have known and loved. Joining us today, Charlotte Wilder, our dear friend who has been around here in the past. You can catch her right now as a part of the Ultimate College Football Road Trip with Fox Sports. She has been all over the country, gallivanting through your favorite college football town, showing you the sights and sounds. We have Jessica Smetana, who joins us here from Golick and Smetty. You also see her over on the Levitard Show, part of the Meadowlark, part of the DraftKings family here, but also bringing these two together, formerly of the Most Valuable Podcast, where I really first met the two of you, interacted with the two of you in a lot of meaningful ways here. So, hi guys, how we doing?
Hi. Wait, Charlotte, what happened? Whatever happened to that show?
Oh, I think, gosh, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we got canceled.
Wait, you should clarify that.
Oh, sorry, right. No, not bad canceled. Like, we didn't do anything. Like, SI just was one day like, we're canceling your show. And we were like, wait, what?
Someone at Sports Illustrated literally was like, hey, we don't want to make podcasts anymore where people display their personality. We just want to make podcasts where people do journalism. And we were like, oh, that's like the opposite of every other podcast. So
yeah, we were like, well,
isn't going to work for us.
Thing about that is that isn't that like what podcasts are? But cool. No, you do you. Jess, I think this is the first time though. I honestly think this might be the first time we're on a podcast together since then.
You might be right.
I don't quite know how that's possible, but like this is a huge moment.
I was going to ask if we were bringing you guys back together. Was there some sort of quiet beef that broke up MVP that I missed out on here? Am I reuniting
us and our
factions?
employers?
It was the beef. No. Yeah, it was us fighting the man, Mike.
Well, unfortunately for you guys, you've walked into DraftKings' #1 staunch journalism podcast, and so there'll be none of that fancy fun bullshit
Love
today. Yes.
As a capital J, we're really we're thrilled to be here. Thanks for having us.
No, very excited to have you guys here. Plenty of fun stuff to get to today. As we're still basking in the afterglow of what the Indianapolis Colts decided to do yesterday. We've got Jerry Jones out in his radio show making very bold overtures, and we are going to do my favorite thing, which is objectify men by the end of this podcast. But in the meantime, guys, Charlotte, I brought up the college football road trip. We've had you on here a couple of times to talk about that. You were down at Texas A&M most recently here. Are they okay right now? Like,
how's it going?
No, they're not. Nobody's okay down there, but that might not have to do with their record. No, I'm just kidding. I had a great time. I got to hang out with Miss Rev, who is one of the goodest dogs in college football. I really think the three of you would love her. She's a really sweet girl. Hung out with some of the horses who parade around Kyle Field before the game, which is, if you're not prepared for it, the weirdest thing you've ever seen. But their football team, yeah, no, like full on, there are 50 horses that march around Kyle Field before. Did you guys know that?
Oh, so I saw
more than I thought there would be like 4, but now it sounds like it's the actual like Rohirrim from Lord of the Rings marching around.
And when they start coming in, you're like, oh, okay, that's a lot of horses, and then they just keep coming.
Just like wave after wave of horses.
Yes,
I saw RG3 because his crew was him and Mark Jones were on the TV broadcast for that game, and I saw RG3, who has gone out and lived college football as hard and loud as any person ever calling the sport this year. But he was out petting the horses beforehand and said apparently the freshmen are in charge of cleaning up the shit for the horses. Did you discover that in your travels?
Yeah, they walk behind the horses with a wheelbarrow and shovels. But the thing is that they don't do like the best job. So after they cleaned up, I was like, there's just horse shit next to a football field. And you're like, okay, I guess I'll just like avoid it. But I did hang out with the people who take care of these horses. It's called the Parsons Mounted Cavalry, and they were really sweet and lovely and let me pat the horses. And so I especially shout out Maria, who's going to the Air Force next year, and she has her life together much more than I did when I was her age.
Oh, that sounds like fun. My fondest horse-related memory this year is the SMU pony shitting all over the field, and the player or the grad assistants or whoever it was had to pick it up with like paper cups. So I'm glad at least Texas A&M is willing to up the ante and just use wheelbarrows.
Yeah, they've got a plan. They're like, oh, we know this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's one of the things that Notre Dame is really missing out on is a solid animal experience.
Horses?
Obviously, before we were the Fighting Irish, we were the Fighting Terriers or whatever the hell. And like,
Flashmore Mike.
look at y'all. Look at y'all.
Oh my God.
Embarrassing. You should be embarrassed of yourself. But anyways, what animal do you think we can get around? Do you think we can get one of those fat squirrels on a leash? Like, what do we have?
I mean, Charlotte, you were at Tennessee with the squirrel guy, so that seems pretty doable, actually.
Yeah, I have a contact, Brandon, if you want a squirrel.
Squirrel wrangler?
Yeah.
You need to think more Catholic though, Brandon. Like something has to have some sort of like biblical tie, and it has to be like a dove or something like that. Yeah. Or maybe we get a bunch of animals and we get 2 of everything and bring them to a stadium like Noah's Ark.
Oh,
Brandon, correct me. Didn't you recently go see the Ark?
No, I did not. I did not. Thank you for no. I did not. I went to Pigeon Forge.
Oh, you went to the zoo. You didn't go. Sorry, different.
Well,
I love the idea that all zoos are descendant of Noah's Ark.
I mean, they kind of are.
I know. This one definitely was. This is a deer farm, basically like an exotic animal farm in someone's backyard, and they had like a lot of animals that they probably shouldn't. Definitely some Joe Exotic vibes. Yeah,
what
those bunnies were too big.
Is this in Kentucky?
Oh, no, this was in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. I was actually there celebrating my mom's birthday, but it was a Tennessee, Alabama.
Wait.
It's big shit.
No. You went to a different zoo recently before that.
No, I'm telling you, if you're talking about my social media, that was at someone's house.
Okay.
That zebra that I was taking pictures of, yeah, that was in someone's backyard.
Okay. No further questions.
I have a lot of questions. That being said, I do love
go to the zoo. No, we went to the aquarium. Mike, we
had
that mix up
right.
The water
that
zoo.
was the mix up before the aquarium. The Cincinnati, the Newport Aquarium, which is in Kentucky, not Cincinnati. Mike, you were saying.
Well, no, I appreciate you gaslighting Charlotte on the zoo topic there. That's really nice of you to do that to our podcast guest. I love Jess's idea of making it the Ark because Notre Dame's campus has everything else represented. You've got touchdown Jesus, you've got first down Moses, and now I feel like having a working Ark on campus is the last step of all this as far as the pregame festivities.
There's also the Jesus statue that people put hot dogs on. Have you guys seen that one?
No.
I'm still
sorry, that's my religion now. I've converted.
All hail hot dog.
Go on, Jess, tell me everything.
Wait, you don't know First Down Moses?
I thought that's you talking about Father Soren in God Quad?
No, First Down Moses is on the like left side of the library. Like west side of the library has his finger up, and students put like during Halloween they put a pumpkin on his finger. Sometimes they'll put like a toilet paper roll on his finger.
Wow.
They decorate Moses accordingly. Yeah.
Can I say the other thing that I would really love as Notre Dame's potential animal mascot? Have you guys ever seen the biblically accurate angel drawings?
No.
Mike.
They are horrifying.
Oh my God.
Is that an eye in the middle
cool.
of them?
Is that Aaron Rodgers' forearm tattoo?
Yes, more or less.
Looks like
this is
octopus.
This is what they all look like.
Are you sure that's not from like Minority Report?
Yeah, like I'm just confused what I'm seeing. It's like a Lisa Frank.
It looks like an octopus with wings instead of tentacles.
Yeah. I don't know. My God has not shown me an angel like that. Have you seen Touched by an Angel? Do you need to rewatch that show?
I'm waiting for the remastered version that includes the biblically accurate ones. I, a biblical scholar, will accept nothing less.
Didn't you have to take theology class at Notre Dame? Which professor taught you
man.
this? They need to probably get fired.
No comment. I will
or get tenure. Jess,
Yeah.
I want to tell you just how intertwined you and Notre Dame are in my head, because the minute Mike said, what should Notre Dame's mascot be? I was like, a King Charles Cavalier, easy. I was like, hands down, no question, that's what it is.
Next.
Except Cavalier King Charles Spaniels are probably Anglican, so that wouldn't work with the whole Catholic thing.
Oh, well, but it's you who loves it.
I understand. Yes, my family didn't have them when I was growing up. You make a valid point.
I'm like, but you're Notre Dame and you
being
love
an
cats.
Oh my God, Jess made a full cast point, and the rest of us were like, wait a minute,
Yeah,
this
I
is a
was
little
like,
bit
oh
too
my
inside
gosh.
religious baseball for me.
She contains multitudes.
She really does. Speaking of multitudes, I did want to tap in on a little bit of college football with you guys before we left off on there, just because we're right in the middle of the sort of silly season here surrounding the CFP coming down to the end of the year, all that stuff. We had a big weekend this past weekend. I don't know if you guys heard. Notre Dame won a big game. LSU decided to win one in the same weekend. Jess is repping loud and proud here. So I didn't know for you guys what you thought the most impactful game from this last weekend was, Charlotte, as far as just either the scene that it provided, its overall impact on the college football playoff. Like, it's an imperfect metric here, but what you thought stood out the most from what felt like across the board a very like ground movie kind of weekend for the sport.
I mean, to me, I hate to do the media thing and be like, oh, well, let's talk about Alabama. But I felt like LSU beating Alabama was huge, because I think that there's such an inclination to rank them high no matter what. And then you lose to Tennessee, and then losing to LSU, it becomes very hard to spin that. It's very hard to be like, oh, but they should still be ranked 6. It's like, well, no, they clearly should not. I was also watching that game on a plane and like zoned out for a sec, and some guy behind me just like screams out, yes, yes. And I looked at the screen and I was like, oh, I guess they won. So there's something funny about like hearing people yell as they watch sports on a plane.
I think communal watching on a plane is one of the most fun things that you can have if you look up on everyone's seat back and notice they've all got the same game on, because now it feels like you're mimicking the crowd. But I think you're absolutely right about that. Now, we're recording this, spoiler, before the college football playoff second round of rankings come out, but I think how the committee decides to legislate Alabama and LSU is going to be really interesting, and Tennessee for that matter, who just lost that game at number 1. Like, Jess, I don't know if there was a game, I feel like I have an idea of which one you thought might have been most impactful from this past weekend, but the Tennessee factor in the next round of this round of college football playoff rankings is going to be the most important part of the discussion.
Yeah, well, I think the Tennessee-Georgia game didn't maybe have as big of a playoff implication, because Tennessee still has, they'll have a quality loss now, as the committee would call it, heading into the end of the season. As long as they win out, I think they'll still make it. But I also think the Clemson-Notre Dame game had significant implications to, like, I think something that may be fundamentally broken with Clemson's current team, their roster construction, their staff. Dabo had a ton of criticism going into the season about promoting internally for these coordinator positions, and just watching the game and reading the Tigers message boards afterwards, fans are not happy about any of those coordinators. I mean, it's not just Notre Dame fans who want to fire their coordinators after wins and losses. Like, Clemson fans are ready to just clean house. Jeff Scott getting fired this weekend, I think, also has like invigorated this fan base now to try to get him to come back to Clemson. So I think, although I don't know if I think if Clemson had won the ACC championship, they'd be in no matter what, but they still have a shot, even if they win out, beat North Carolina in the ACC championship. I still think they have a shot at making the playoff, but I think that this maybe speaks to something that fans have felt uncomfortable about since the beginning of last season, when they lost to Georgia in the opener 10-3 or whatever that horrible score was. And maybe at this point now, having been humiliated on the road, like, some adjustments will actually get made that might have skated by till the end of the season if they had another playoff run or ACC championship win.
That is an interesting way to think about, will it force Clemson to change? Because Dabo's been pretty stuck on, I am not going to really meddle with a ton of the portal stuff in college football. He's been fiercely loyal to the people that have been inside that program as far as coaches. Been fiercely loyal to DJ Uiagalelei, who a lot of people thought should have been pulled sooner than he was for Cade Klubnik in that game on the road. And so you do wonder, now that's a program that survived a really bad season last year. I thought played even, worse than we've seen. Like, do you think any part of that loss, Jess, was more embarrassing or more troublesome than what they dealt with at the beginning of last year in so many of those close games where it seemed like DJ had an even tougher time?
Yeah, because I think last year, they got off to a pretty poor start and lost the game in overtime to NC State, lost to Pitt, and then they ended up salvaging it and going 10-3, which I think ended up being a success. Now, in the offseason, losing Brent Venables, it can't be overstated how big of a blow that is because, as you said, Dabo likes to promote his guys and be supportive and promote from within like Clemson guys. But Brent Venables was an outsider when he came to Clemson, and that was probably the most successful coordinator Dabo's ever had. And like even looking at his offensive coordinators who have left Clemson, their coaching record as Power 5 or as FBS coaches is like just so bad compared to their success as coordinators with Clemson. None of them, like Chad Morris, Tony Elliott. Tony Elliott's his first year, but Jeff Scott, they've all had really tough times as head coaches. And so, yeah, it's just something that I think, you knew going into the season losing Brent Venables was going to sting. And you knew going into the season Dabo was going to try to make it work with DJ as he did last year. And to DJ's credit, I think he's handled all of this incredibly well as a player. But I also, this game in particular, I question the timing of pulling DJ, putting in your backup who's, he's a 5-star. He's got a lot of confidence coming after that Syracuse game management situation where he came in and helped them secure that victory after DJ wasn't playing so hot. And then you put him in and he throws an interception on his second play of the game. I don't understand. It felt like something Brian Kelly would have done in 2012 or 2011. And that is something that Dabo doesn't do very often. He hasn't had to because he's had Trevor Lawrence and he's had Deshaun Watson. He's kind of had the situation with Kelly Bryant 3 years ago. But I
was just going to say that was not that there's too much political conversation already in the ether, but that was a more peaceful transfer of power that situation. Where we saw it was a clean break. It was, we're going to go with Trevor Lawrence from here on out. It is going to be his team. I think that might have been either before or after they played Syracuse. That's always sort of traditionally been a wonky game for modern Clemson football. But this one has been a lot of back and forth. And after that Cade thing, you had Dabo come out and very publicly cape for DJ again. So it put him in kind of a tough bind.
I know. And I do admire that he's loyal to DJ because I think that a lot of DJ's a lot of his issues stem from what seems to be confidence issues. Because 1 minute he's playing lights out against Wake Forest and going toe for toe against Sam Hartman, and the next minute he can't put together a drive. And so, whether it's the coordinators for just not being able to work with him and create a game plan that's going to make him look successful, or it's confidence issues or whatever is going on behind the scenes there. Either way, the way that it has now cost them a game is something that's probably a bigger indictment on organizational dysfunction this season than anything else.
Dabo also said after, he said he was shocked by the loss. And that to me feels like such a dumb thing to say no matter what, because you should not, I don't think you should ever as a coach be going into a situation to the point where you're shocked that you lose. I think you've got to tamp down whatever that is, that if that is imparted to your players and then what do they do next? It sort of leaves you reeling in a way that just to me seems like really dumb management.
Well, and that was it's interesting to hear some of these traditional powers that have looked a little more human, right? We're having the same conversation about Alabama to an extent, where after the Tennessee game, we heard from Will Anderson and from Nick Saban, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, but in some way, they were a bit rattled by the environment there in Knoxville, that so much of that situation seemed to affect an Alabama team in a way that we thought they were always bulletproof from. And so I think that's another part of what happened this weekend. Charlotte, to your point about Alabama losing at the same time Georgia went out and did that to Tennessee, kind of cemented that we're in Georgia's college football right now. Do you guys feel like that's the official baton handling between last year, Georgia obviously winning the national championship to now. I don't know why I said I talked about handing off the baton and then fumbled my own handoff.
Me?
Go ahead, Sean.
I mean, yeah, I think so. And I think it was interesting because when I was at Georgia for the Auburn game, there were a lot of fans who were still so not sold on Stetson Bennett, like angry that he was their quarterback. And I was like, okay, I get it from a point of view of like, here's a guy with a flip phone who like shows up late to interviews and is like a scrawny, like what? Yeah, sure. But like, he won a national championship and you're undefeated. So I don't quite understand. Maybe it's just like ingrained Georgia fear that you're like hedging your bets from, 40 years. But I watching this team, it's like, all right, well, it's like not fun really to like I did not enjoy the Tennessee game. I was like, well, like this, I love Tennessee, Alabama because it was like either one could win. And this, I was like, oh, well, it was like running into a brick wall every time Tennessee had the ball. So I don't see. I really hope that Georgia loses to a surprising team because that'll make it interesting again. Because otherwise, it's just like, okay, cool.
I don't know if it's a handing off of a baton, just for the fact that like I don't feel comfortable saying Nick Saban is out of anything until the man retires and literally like moves to some desolate island home somewhere. Which, I mean, maybe he would never even do. He'll probably just, like, stick around for decades and, like, haunt the next current head coach of Alabama. But, like, I think Alabama's problems maybe stem from, like, their offensive coordinator not being the most creative college football mind, their five-star quarterback, Heisman finalist, getting injured early on in the season and not being able to shake the cobwebs off afterwards. Like, they're not the most disciplined Alabama team of the last few years. Like, they've been called on a lot of penalties. They don't look the same as Alabama 3 seasons ago, or 2 seasons ago, 3 seasons ago. But I also don't think that, like, expecting anything less from Nick Saban has been a good prediction on anyone's part for a while. So, like, I don't think they're going to make the playoff. They have 2 losses now. They're probably out of it. But they didn't make the playoff in 2019 either and then won the national championship the next year.
Well,
so you're telling me the Pats are going to win the Super Bowl, Jeff?
Right?
Probably. Hey, with that defense,
Bailey
you
Zappi.
never know. Zappy magic. No, but Jess, I wanted to go, what you first said about Alabama is like you feel like that they're not out yet just because it's Nick Saban and you just like kind of recency bias or history. That's why I felt like that Notre Dame Clemson game was so big because Notre Dame really did snatch the heart out of Clemson's chest for the season. Like I think like that was literally like that was why Dabo was so surprised is because like Notre Dame not only ended their season but embarrassed them in a way that Notre Dame has never done before. And even in Brian Kelly's first season at LSU, it still didn't feel like that Alabama was dead at the end of that game.
Dabo said after the game, in 14 years, this was about as disappointed as he's ever been. Like, he did not expect that to happen. I mean, like, the line was like maybe -3.5 before the game. Yeah. It wasn't like they were big favorites to win. And like, I don't think, Notre Dame doesn't really get that many points for being at home after you lose games to Stanford and Marshall at home. So I think that's just like the odds makers knowing that this Clemson team has some weaknesses that can be exploited against a Notre Dame team that has played up to its competition. But Dabo was still shocked by it. He absolutely came in thinking he was going to win that game. And like 3.5 quarters in, they hadn't even scored a touchdown.
Jess, you mentioned Clemson was the team in week 1 of the rankings that even as they were sitting up there for a lot of people didn't really buy into that way. I thought Michigan should have been ranked ahead of them because Michigan was a better team than them. But the resume has to be rewarded. The ACC at the time had a bunch of teams still ranked in the college football top 25. Again, we are recording this before the rankings come out, but I feel like this week that conversation is going to be centered around what happens or doesn't happen with TCU, because there's a lot of people that wondered, hey, Tennessee's got 1 loss and it's against a Georgia team that's now going to be the unquestioned number 1. Would you still have them in front of an undefeated TCU squad? Where is LSU going to land in that? Where's Oregon going to land in that, who's got that loss to the season? Would you guys be upset? Like, I'm going to be giving everyone a chance to be either preliminarily upset or okay with Tennessee being ranked ahead of an undefeated TCU team. How would you guys feel about that?
I think this is one of those situations where like Tennessee needed to score a few more points for that to be like a no-brainer. Because I think like the committee's going to look at TCU, and like the Big 12 has been so kind of like the tier 2 Big 12 teams, like everyone behind TCU, and maybe even a little bit including TCU, but they've all beaten up on each other. They've all had bad quarterback luck. They've all kind of ended up in this weird like middle ground where now they've all beaten each other out of the rankings essentially. And like you're probably going to get a little bit of that with the ACC too towards the end of the season after like NC State and Wake play each other. But yeah, Mike, I think it's tough for TCU. I think they're still going to have to play their way into the playoff or win their way into the playoff. If they beat Texas this weekend, I think that helps tremendously. But you're not too hot on that. Texas is a 7-point favorite. You said on our show earlier, you were filling in for your dad that Texas was going to absolutely win that game. Are you taking that back now?
You know what, Jess? I've thought about it a little bit in the interim here. I think I wasn't surprised that they were favored. And I said that pretty much Saturday night after I got done with calling my game there, that I expected them to open up that way. One, because we've clearly seen Vegas, when Quinn Ewers is on the field, is very into Texas and very much buys what they're selling. But we also know TCU's been playing with a very small margin for error, right? It's been mounting comebacks in almost every game. They did it with Texas Tech this past weekend. It's awesome. And you know what? There is part of me that says, and I thought about this, Jess, after we talked, they kind of remind me of 2012 Notre Dame.
I was just going to say that. I was literally just going to say that.
It's a team that you could say like overcomes adversity, finds a way to win offensively outside of Quentin Johnston. Like they put up some numbers, but I think it's slowed down here in the last couple of weeks. I think our defense was probably better on the top end. We were like a number 1 defense pretty much all season long, but you got to give them credit. They found a way. Max Duggan's been resourceful, even if I think, you know, some of the Heisman conversation or buzz around him might be a little bit premature. They do get credit for actually handling adversity, which we can't say has been the case for every team that's going to be up in that range. So I would say right now, I would be upset if they weren't rewarded with being in the top 4 this week, knowing full well they're going to be the one on upset alert walking into this weekend because of the way that Texas game is situated. But I would say they're undefeated in a Power 5 conference that's still very deep, even if those teams are bottlenecked there. And so right now they need to be at 4, even if I have questions about if they'll be there at the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they need to, even if they're like 5 right now as the playoff rankings have come out, I think if they continue to win out this season, they will end up in over like multiple 1-loss teams, because you're going to have a Michigan or Ohio State with a loss. You're going to have obviously Tennessee. Georgia could lose in the SEC championship game. Then you're going to have like this weird thing with LSU that you probably don't want to have to think about. But yeah, I think it's the if you win you're in situation for TCU right now. Even if they don't have the best strength of schedule, I think that if they win, they are going to be fine.
I think so too, but I think they're going to beat Texas. I really do. I'm
upset alert.
I'm going for the upset on this one. I think there's something about playing at Texas that it feels primed for an upset to me, because there's like, yes, fans are intense, but the difference between like being at that stadium and being at like Tennessee or I guess those are the 2 ones that stand out to me because they're both orange. So sorry. But like that, like
start with a T.
Yeah, I didn't feel like Texas fans bring it in the same way. So I kind of think that I can't wait to get yelled at for this. But I kind of think that if there's ever a chance for TCU to be the team that upsets another team at home, I kind of think it's going to be Texas.
Well, I'll say as Notre Dame people, Notre Dame players on the field, Mike, we've seen other players go into Notre Dame Stadium and they want to make huge plays on that field, on that historic, on that hallowed ground. And Texas Christian University heading into Texas.
And I will say, by the way, TCU on that campus, strong Notre Dame vibes. Like there's a lot of similarities there in the way that it's structured there. And right now, what they're trying to position themselves as in the Big 12, because remember, Texas is getting ready to leave and head to the SEC. TCU wants to be the team of Texas inside the Big 12. And Sonny Dykes is someone who has cut his teeth in that state, obviously has his father who's got big lineage in that state, but this is not someone who's going to be overwhelmed by the moment. Like as we talk about the stories of college football season, Lance Leipold in Kansas, to me, like Lance Leipold should be coach of the year. Jim Mora might not be far behind him for getting UConn bowl eligible or near bowl eligibility. Now, I forget if they got it this past weekend. But Sonny Dykes is right up there. He's walked right in out of SMU. UConn needs one more to be bowl eligible?
One more, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, because it was Kansas that tore down the goalpost, and they've been much more successful faster than UConn. But like either way, not far out of that range would be the job that Sonny Dykes has come and done in at TCU. So I'd agree with you on that. I worry about when Quinn Ewers is at the helm. I really think that Texas offense is something lethal, even if the defense is slowed down a bit since the way we saw them at that Alabama game. So it'll be interesting.
For the first time in my life, I just Googled UConn, and it asked if I wanted to see more about UConn football and not UConn basketball. So that, to me, is a huge win for Nora Jr.
Like it auto-corrected.
Haunted house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They have 5 wins. They're playing Liberty this weekend and then Army. So.
Ooh, all right. So they're Liberty and then Army, and then is that the last 2 games of their season?
Yeah, that's a tough stretch to get to 6.
Oh man, I really would love to see it. It's already been such an overwhelming success, and like you said, they've managed to change the algorithm, which is a very difficult thing to do when you're going up against the giant that is UConn women's basketball. So
100%.
I'm shook that the season is almost over.
I know.
True.
I thought
terrified.
It was I
don't want it to end, but also my doctors probably would recommend that I stop watching Notre Dame football this season.
Yeah, or like take blood pressure medication.
Or just like take a walk.
Yeah, or a walk.
Yeah, touch grass has been the motto for so much of this season, and I've tried to live up to that as best I can. Guys, I did want to talk a little bit, and Jess, you and I had talked, Brandon, you and I had talked, but Charlotte, what we had seen yesterday from the world in the NFL, we talked about Jeff Saturday being hired by the Indianapolis Colts.
Like Jeff Sunday.
Jesus.
Oh,
I wish.
I'm not seeing that anywhere.
I was trying to think of like a kitsch. I was trying to think of like a kitschy sign that they could put up in the building. Or I feel like Jim Irsay at this point, who was at the podium pretty unhinged in front of everyone. I was shocked that he didn't point out that every day is going to be Saturday in Indianapolis now or something like that.
I mean, also though, have you ever heard Jim Irsay hinged? Like, I don't think I feel like that's a pretty standard.
The only time he hinges is when he's in the squat rack, and it's very little. He keeps great angles.
What if you did like hashtag any given Saturday?
Ooh.
Oh.
Okay, now. I'm
trying to think of like songs with Saturday in them.
That's the only one I got.
Yeah.
I
think that
Rebecca
my
Black's
take
song.
on Friday
is like, because tomorrow's Saturday. She said
to heckle him, you could just call him, be like, "Hey, Jeff Wednesday, what's up?" Just like other days. Anyway,
I like the idea of like people that used to name their underwear for days of the week. His all just say Saturday.
Do you ever wear named underwear, Mike? Like to remember the day of the week?
No, I didn't.
Like
but
you wouldn't be organized enough to do. But
no, definitely not. It does make me remember one of my favorite commercials where that guy gets stuck in the hallway in the hotel, and he's in his underwear, and the woman in the back goes, "It's Wednesday, Gary," because he's got the wrong day's pair of underpants on. But I digress.
Let's stay here for a little bit longer because I thought Charlotte was a twin, really, for me, because I'm slightly dyslexic for what's the little things. I had gotten Wednesday and Saturday mixed up in my head until like I got to college. Like I've always I've gotten dates wrong. Like I've had to lean on numbers and dates because Wednesday and Saturday are the same thing in my brain.
No way.
Does anybody else have any
those are like the two most opposite days to mix up though, because Wednesdays absolutely suck and Saturdays are fucking awesome.
Brandon, you played football. Like you had practice on Wednesday and then a game on Saturday.
they sound the same to me.
See, I love this though. This is the kind of thing I live for, like hearing people's own, because I feel like I have so many of these and I think that I'm just insane. And so hearing something like that, I'm like, oh, cool.
Charlotte, how about you give me one and let me not be alone in this?
Okay, when I was little, fine. I hate that Brandon was like, I bet Charlotte's got one of these. And then I do. I thought when I was little, I thought that there were two Sundays. I didn't know there was a Saturday. I thought it was you had Sunday and Sunday.
First Sunday and second Sunday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's awesome. That's
so
cool.
I feel very seen and a little concerned.
Did you prefer like Sunday A or B?
Yeah, it was like, well, which Sunday? My parents were like, oh my God. They were like, we've got a problem.
Well, I mean, as long as we're all putting our hand up and saying the dumb thing we used to do, I thought like until I was in college that the value of a stamp was just its price. And so that I bought the 1 cent stamp to send my mom a Mother's Day card because I thought it was the cheapest. And I didn't understand why people would spend more money on stamps when you could just get the 1 cent stamp.
I don't understand how stamps work. So that one really doesn't mean a lot to me.
Wait, Jess, do you remember when we had MPP, we had a segment where we talked about how we were scared of the mail.
I'm literally terrified of going to the post office. I don't know how it works. I don't want to know. I never will need to know. The end.
I don't return things that don't fit me because I don't know how to mail them back.
No, I've actually figured that out because I do return a lot of things, but only when they send a prepaid receipt, otherwise, or prepaid sticker. Otherwise, it's just too much.
Yeah, I had one the other day that they were like, you got to go to the place and get a label, or you got to print a label. And I was like, I don't have a printer. And then I do now live with someone though who's like very good at logistics, so he helps me. But if I'm left to my own devices, I just don't mail things.
I still think it's kind of crazy. You guys travel a lot more than I do. I think it's crazy that they're asking us to put our own bag tags on now, and we just have done it. Like we've made that transition.
Wait, are they?
The kiosk never works. It never works. I always have to just wait in line and make someone else do it. Yes, Charlotte, like certain airlines now, you go up to the kiosk and scan your pass and then like it prints the thing out for you. I have had I'm probably 1 for 55 on the kiosk actually printing the sticker out. And the other 54 times I just go up to the counter and I'm like, please just print it out for me. It never works.
Wait, so you guys don't take like a weird pride in being able to stick it perfectly?
I do.
I would, but I don't check bags. I haven't
checked a bag since like 2006.
Yeah. I fit everything. Although, can I confess something?
Please do it.
This ties into everything we're talking about right now. I went to Texas A&M, bought myself a pair of cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. They didn't fit in my carry-on, obviously, because you pack it to the gills when you're leaving. And
so you wore it to the airport?
No, I put it in a bag. I brought it. I put it in the car. I was like, I'm going to stop and mail these home to myself. Got so intimidated at the prospect of stopping at a FedEx that I left them in the rental car and left and went and got on my plane.
Charlotte.
That is the worst way for that story to end.
No, because now somebody has a pair of cowboy boots. Sorry, I've really upset you. I feel like I've really upset you.
What did the person at the...
You should cut this out of the podcast. Don't.
It was the mail's fault, Jess.
I do appreciate you not knowing how to mail something that badly that you just gave up.
I panicked.
You had good intentions.
For shoes, I would have figured it out.
I panicked.
Yeah, you walk in there and just plop them down. I go, I need these to get from here to here. How are we doing this?
I would have worn them on the plane with another pair of shoes like over them.
Yeah, there are so many things that I should have done here.
Not even shoes. Cowboy boots are a bill. Like cowboy boots are expensive. They're a luxury. They're beautiful. These were
not like the nicest. I got them like to wear in Texas. So it wasn't
like costume boots. Okay.
So yeah, it wasn't like as bad as it could have been, but it wasn't great.
Okay. God, new boot goofing gone so horribly wrong.
New boot bad goofing.
Oh man! All right, I'm glad to know that I've been often vilified by my family for not knowing at that juncture as a sophomore in college how to send mail. So it's nice to meet two adults who are still at war with the Postal Service.
Well, Jess isn't my level. Don't loop her into that.
Well, also save the post office, right?
Yes, obviously. Yes,
we're
big proponents.
All hail the post office.
But like maybe, I don't know, my parents should have taught me how stamps work. That's all I'm saying.
That's what I said. That was
It's
my
Mark's
whole point.
fault.
It was bad parenting.
Very bad parenting. Terrible parenting.
Y'all figured out how to save money though. I know how to send shit, but I don't know how to save money.
Oh.
Some of our
You're being presumptuous, Brandon.
Things our parents taught us.
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true either. I think we could go pretty deep on the failings.
Let's talk to Sid Golick and see if that lesson was taught.
Man, if you want to be
Shots
humble.
to Sid. I'm sorry, Sid.
No, I can say shout out to Sydney catching a stray on this podcast here.
Sid knows I love and respect her.
She's figured it out and beaten the game here.
1,000%.
Charlotte, I apologize. I stepped completely on and derailed asking you if you had any thoughts about Jeff Saturday in order to get to a conversation about underwear that led to a conversation about the mail.
Oh, yeah. Standard stuff. No, I just think that you can't, like, he is the perfect name for a football coach. And I think that really, talking about his name, I think that clouded judgment. I think they hired him because of his name. I think his name's Jeff Saturday, and they're like, well, he's in the Hall of Fame. So someone's going to, if we don't get him, someone else is going to get him because his name is Jeff Saturday. So I also would not ever want that. I don't want that. Like, I would never want to go from being in the media to being actually responsible. We get to judge other people's decisions. I'm not trying to make them.
See, that is such an amazing point in all of this because we made the point. I hope we can set aside right now. I have a lot of respect for Jeff. I am rooting for Jeff. I also see how this is very problematic for a league that is very, very poor track record of hiring practices, especially for coaches of color, and all of this kind of leads back to that conversation. That being said, this happens all the time with people that have been in coaching. Like Herm Edwards left a great job at ESPN to go back to Arizona State. I was
just thinking about Herm Edwards.
John Gruden was making $10 million a year doing Monday Night Football and left only to leave in total disgrace with the Las Vegas Raiders. These coaches always go back. Jeff had coached high school football.
Urban Meyer.
Right? All these people leave comparatively way less work for a lot of work. And for Jeff, I get it's 8 weeks and a chance to help a place he was already helping, but I'm with you, Charlotte. People always ask former players when you get done, would you ever think about getting into coaching? And my answer is a resounding no. That shit's actually hard. Yeah,
very difficult. I log in and I goof around with my friends, and that's my job. It feels good. I also just don't. I would be the kind of football coach where I would always go for two. I would never punt, and it would.
You sound awesome.
Well,
you sound like the guy who coached Presbyterian last year. Yeah,
that high school coach.
It's a college, outside of Columbia, South Carolina. But yeah, Mike.
Sorry.
Yes.
He.
Never mind. I thought that there was a legendary high school coach in somewhere else where they
might have been a high school coach before that.
He was, yes. He was a high school coach for a long time. He went to Presbyterian last year, so you're actually both right.
Okay, great. Love when that happens.
2 parts of the documentary. You guys are on the same point.
I feel like I would give up the $10 million a year job just to be able to call plays for 1 quarter. That would be sick. I would call a flea flicker on every down, or
trick plays only. Trick plays only.
I'd be naked bootleg, wheel route, flea flicker, touchdown. Honestly, we win. Bye.
Yes, I'll be your OC if you want. I mean,
I'm calling the plays.
No, as head coach, you can call the plays, and I'll stand there. I'll be your get back coach, but nominally. I don't want to call plays. I just want to suggest trick ones and have you either agree or not disagree.
I'm down for that.
Right.
So this actually brings up a point I was curious about is there a job that if you were offered in sports that was outside of your normal area of expertise that you would actually take? And is there a job that is so difficult? Like Charlotte, for you draw the line at coaching. Too much to do there, too much to be asked of. Even if offered the coaching job at the favorite school you've been at or the favorite place you've been, you would say no. Do you have the job that you would say yes to on the top end? Because for me, in a heartbeat, college football playoff chairperson. I think I would kick full-blown ass at that job.
You would be actually so good at that, Mike.
I agree.
Because I think the biggest issue with the college football playoff chair, and no disrespect to Boo Corrigan, who's the current chairperson
right, and they have great food in their press box, as we've discussed on Golick and Smetty. Shout out to Boo Corrigan.
Yeah, big ups. NC State press box, pot stickers and hot dogs at halftime, a triumph. But I just think like so much of the job is you get to sit and watch film all day, and then as the chairperson, you've got to go and explain this. The one thing I've done in my life here in sports media is have to try and explain stuff. And so I feel like going and speaking on behalf of the 12 other people in the room, I think I could do that.
I think you could definitely do that.
How much film do we think they really watch? That's a discussion for another day. I think Charlotte and I actually have like complementary skill sets in which, Charlotte, you won't coach, I'll coach, but you can be like the recruit scout guy. Like, you have to go out and travel every week and like talk to people. And if this is college football, like we'll call it like you're the head of recruiting or something. You have to like talk to people's parents. You have to like pitch the school. You have to just like basically wine and dine people, go to their house, have a fun time, make them like you, and then they associate those good vibes with the school. I don't want to do any of that shit. Like, I'll call the plays and we'll throw pick sixes off of every flea flicker that I'm calling on offense. But I'm not traveling. I'm not like going to someone's house and having to like make small talk with them. Like, you're going to do all of that.
That's it. First of all, thank you. That's a high compliment, Jess. I seriously, thank you. I think that I would unfortunately be good at that. And I would feel a little grimy about being really good at that because a friend who worked in college coaching for basketball for a few years, he was like, I feel like I'm dating like 5 different 16-year-old boys at the same time and like telling each of them that like that's the guy for me, because you have to just like lead them on until one of them commits. And I was like, oh, that sounds awful. I don't want to do that. But I think I'd be really good at going to people's houses and like making their parents trust me.
Winning over the parents, exactly.
Yeah.
Like you would be, oh, this food is amazing. Thank you so much for the bowl of chili.
Oh, green bean casserole. My favorite.
Yeah, right.
I would kind of like to be a locker room guy. Like whether that's, I would like some position of leadership where I can be like, here are the vibes. Here's the management style we're going to go for. Like, here's how I would like that. But I don't want to have to actually like, Jess, you handle all the actual football stuff.
Wheel route.
Yeah.
It's always open.
So many wheel routes. They're always. How does that always work? Why don't make the whole plane out of wheel routes? I don't understand.
Instead of Jane Costin's all offensive pass interference or all DPI offense, all wheel route offense.
Yes, exactly.
I've had a tattered relationship with coaches. So every time anyone was like, "You ever want to be a coach?" I was like, I would never want to be that person in a young man's life. I would never do that to somebody. So when I didn't get the call for the NFL, I came back to Ball State. I had one more year to finish out my master's there, and I was an ops guy. I was a GA for the football team, ops and recruiting, and it's kind of like a player personnel type of role. And I think that I did do that well. One of the things I had to do was lunch for all the coaches, catering, that type of thing. So I'm always thinking about what people are eating and what we're going to eat next. You know what I'm saying?
That's a good producer.
Yeah.
Also.
Thank you.
Also,
one time I got in trouble.
We would be good at, Char.
Yeah, I think so too, Jess. I think we'd crush those lunch orders,
What did you get in trouble for?
Working together.
What did you get in trouble for?
Well, okay. This one time Ball State was playing Western Michigan in Kalamazoo. I have Detroit roots, so I knew of some specific places to eat there. So I was like, ooh, after the game, everybody would be really excited to get Jets Pizza and get some boats from Jets Pizza. Boats are basically the calzones. And I was like, ooh, and we got a little bit of money left in the budget. Let me call Insomnia Cookies and get some, like, everyone gets a cookie and a boat, a calzone. Well, they delivered too early, and during halftime, people were players walked by like pizza and cookies and smelled it, and everyone was talking about how good it smelled. And I got motherfucked by Pete Limbo. He's a special teams coordinator. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, coach. I don't know where you are right now. I'm pretty sure you're in South Carolina with the Gamecocks. And he was like, just cussing me out. Brandon, these are the things you have to concern yourself with. Why the fuck would you have this pizza? Like, get this shit out of here. Get this shit. I don't want this shit. Get the smell out of here. And,
because players didn't have it.
People were not locked in. I mean, could you imagine? Like, I think they were at that point in time. It was before PJ Fleck, so Western Michigan was bad. So it was like they were just up on them. Ball State was a good football team, a bowl team at that point in time, and no one was thinking about like the game, everybody's thinking about pizza and cookies, and because of me.
Oh man.
Man.
That's a brilliant opposition strategy.
Oh.
You call in a ton of
yes.
pizzas to the opposing team locker room and like
For
have them all
halftime.
and
Right,
I
going
like that.
into halftime.
Smart. You're right. He's a special teams coordinator for South Carolina. He's also from Staten Island. Not someone I would want to piss off.
Yeah,
that's very
sorry
true.
about that, coach.
Wait, now I'm trying to think, because there were always those years where people would talk about like the Iowa visitors locker room was painted completely pink to kind of jar everyone.
Because women like pink. Oh, you got him.
Girls over there were playing. But that being said, what would be the best smell to psychologically damage your opponent?
like the worst Bed Bath and Beyond candle.
Right, like would it be
Take
something
that
like that
outside.
kind of gives you a headache after?
Yeah,
a while?
that gives you a headache and it like reminds you of the mall. Do you know what I mean? Maybe this is just my particular the thing that would work well on me, but Brandon's.
Well, I would also say like lavender, just because it always puts me in a really calm space, and that's the last thing I want to be before a game is really
Interesting.
relaxed, like I'm in a bubble bath.
I think anything that's just gonna like confuse or surprise the other team, like a scent that they're not expecting. Any unexpected scent, I think, is gonna do it.
Or like a dive bar, yeah.
you put up images of the dive bar that they would be going to later that night in their home college town. It's like, man, I wish I was drunk right now.
Yeah, and it just smells like a dive bar. Yeah, I think that would psych them out.
I got the thing. It's that threshold. Everyone's been there before. That threshold when you walk into a Cold Stone and you started like adding calories just by having your nostrils
Oh my God,
open.
you're so
Right? Like that shit is like
Wait, I have
delirium.
one. I have one.
Ooh,
The Subway bread smell. Just
Yes.
the
Oh,
most
yes.
pungent smell.
Yes.
Also, I have to say, walked by Popeyes in the airport the other day and I couldn't think about anything else for like hours.
Popeye smells
fair.
really good.
You're human.
That's me with the Atlanta. It's either Atlanta or
Bojangles.
Minneapolis.
Oh.
No, in one of them, I think it's in Minneapolis.
Jess, we've eaten at the Bojangles in the Atlanta airport together before.
We sure have.
Sorry,
Yes, sir.
go ahead, Mike.
No, I was thinking in Minneapolis, there's a combination Cinnabon and Auntie Anne's pretzel store
What?
near one of the gates.
Aren't they like competitors?
In the airport?
Unified.
That is
they
wow.
won
That
and
is
won.
shocking.
They decided to come together and realize they could be like the 2010s Miami Heatles.
Aren't there antitrust laws against that? Come on.
What sort of just and loving God would allow them to have so much power?
So much power.
Worst Auntie Anne's in airport histories in LaGuardia. I don't know which
think it's
airline
gone now.
specifically.
The new LaGuardia, Auntie
Chef's
Anne's
kiss.
would never be able to afford the rent there.
No. They have a Bubby's.
I know. They have like fancy ass restaurants at the new LaGuardia. It's ridiculous.
I love New LaGuardia. I go to New LaGuardia and I just feel like fancy.
It's great.
Wow, New
Damn.
LaGuardia.
I have not had the pleasure, and now I feel left out because ranking
Why?
airports as a person who travels in the media is one of my favorite pastimes. And so
I think
We're gonna have to do
LaGuardia.
that at some point because
put
yeah,
itself-
LaGuardia is definitely like a top 5 now. If you
Oh,
like
easily.
I
Easily.
went over to JFK. I stopped hurting myself with LaGuardia, and then I just that Jamaica Queens. I took that transit to JFK.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
I hate JFK now.
Really?
I like that I can get there for $4. That's
Oh.
it's not
It's
it's
a
not
cheap
bad,
flight.
but it's very very cheap to get to.
well, we're going to have you guys back here at some point to do the airport power rankings podcast. That feels like an appropriate juncture and an appropriate topic of conversation. In the meantime, in finishing off this podcast the way we normally do around here, I'm very excited because you guys get to see a spectacle reserved for a very select few here, because at the end of the podcast, every podcast being someone's first, we do this, that, and the third. It is 3 quick stories to end the day on here. We thank our guests, Charlotte and Jess. Again, you guys make sure you check out both of their work. We are going to shout it out at the beginning of the podcast. We're going to shout it out at the end of the podcast here. But I'm all doing this filibustering to give Brandon time to pull up what he needs to answer the most important question of the day, Brandon. Are you ready? Do you know what time it is? All right, I wasn't sure how you were going to land that plane, Brandon. It was a long, winding road that got us there. I believe yesterday, November 8th, was the 15th anniversary of 8 Mile?
of the movie coming out, Mike. But on the 9th, the day of the Lord's Day today, is the day that Lose Yourself was #1 on the Billboard charts.
Wow.
Have I ever told you guys how my dad inadvertently introduced me to rap music as a genre through that song?
No.
What?
What? Wait, whoa.
So when I was a kid, when that movie came out,
You were able to walk.
Yeah.
That's the first rap song you ever heard?
It was like the one that got me. So like the 8 Mile soundtrack was my gateway. Like I was a white kid from suburban Connecticut. Eminem was obviously my gateway to hip hop. That's the most stereotypically correct thing about me. But I was in the car. I was in the car, and it was me and my brother in the car. We were in the back row. I will never forget it. My dad's in the front seat. My mom's in the passenger seat. My dad looks back at us and goes, I want to play you guys this song. It's all about overcoming adversity and about making sure you're ready for your opportunity. And he's blowing this thing up, trying to do his best sports dad impression of showing us what these life lessons are important in this song that's going to deliver it. And then he plays Lose Yourself by Eminem. And he's sitting up there thinking he fucking nailed this dad moment. And I'm like, oh, I have to get to the rest of the 8 Mile soundtrack. And then I have to download the Eminem show. And now I'm listening to all of this in a way that he definitely did not prepare for. So everything that I now consume media-wise and my musical palette traces back to that moment in the back of my car with my dad trying to make that point.
Oh.
So there you go.
I'm speechless, Mike.
Shocking, actually.
Yeah.
I love that he presented that to you as like, here is a life lesson, son.
Yeah, is your
Yes.
dad JJ Watt?
Honestly, he is
Like
the archetype.
that year he was. Like, Jess, as a coworker, are you embarrassed about like what
No,
Golick
I
Sr.?
mean, it's just like sometimes I think I understand Golick Sr. and then I'm like, this man is perplexing. He contains multitudes.
He's an enigma.
Multitudes. Yes.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yes. Well, that being said, download, subscribe, rate, review Gojo wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating. Tell Brandon what a great job he did trying to attempt to get us to all listen to that while he rapped it.
You did such a good job.
It was
Thank
damn
you, Charlotte.
impressive.
Charlotte, right on cue. Thank you,
You
Charlotte.
did such a good job, Brandon.
You're
We're
doing
so proud.
amazing, sweetie. Let's get to this. Jerry Jones went on his weekly radio show appearance down in Dallas. I believe it is 105.3 The Fan, and started to go out and do the thing where he talked about Odell Beckham Jr. in public. He said it's someone that we all have an appreciation in the world for what he is as a competitor, and know that the Cowboy star on the helmet when he puts it on could look pretty good. Do you guys think this is inevitable? We've been waiting around for the Odell Beckham Jr. sweepstakes all year. Do you think he ends up signing with the team, and do you think that ends up being the Cowboys?
Jess, you go. Brandon, you go.
I think it makes a lot of sense, right? Like they have CeeDee Lamb. Michael Gallup was hurt at the beginning of the season. Did you guys know James Washington is on the Cowboys? He is coming back from a foot injury. I know,
Did
right?
not know that.
I think that it makes a lot of sense. I guess you have to court OBJ and his dad, right? Because that was like the whole thing leaving Cleveland. But I don't know why not.
I think it's a very smart appeal because OBJ loves fashion. And so I think Jerry Jones is like, how can I relate to this guy? I'll talk about the uniforms. He's like, you would look great with the star on your helmet. And OBJ is like, I think he likes to be flattered. I think he likes to feel wanted. As GM, Jerry Jones is just, shooting his shot publicly. He's manifesting. Jerry Jones is manifesting Odell to the Cowboys.
Your point, okay. Odell definitely does seem like he wants to be recruited, and the Cowboys would be happy to do that.
Oh, yeah. He wants to be wanted. Like, he wants to feel that a place is just, like, dying to have him there. And he would... I think I think Jerry's being actually very smart about it.
Well, we know Odell wants to get courted because he told everyone that it was just a little too low for the Rams. The guaranteed money was a little too low. But I think he wants to be a part of a contender, which it's probably easier to do that from the NFC side of things, but not for the Cowboys. They have to go through the Eagles. I think I'm going to I expect to see OBJ with the Ravens by the end of the day.
I was going to say that was the team I thought of. Now, Odell Beckham Jr. in a video on Complex said that wherever he signs, he wants it to be a multi-year situation. And the teams he mentioned were Green Bay, the Cowboys, a reunion with the Giants, or Buffalo. And I feel like a lot of that now is going to depend on what ends up happening with Josh Allen and this whole UCL elbow injury that people are worried about. But I'm with you, Brandon. If I'm the Ravens, I'm backing up whatever we need to, because the Deshaun Jackson situation, he already seemed like he was dealing with hamstring soreness in that game. They're going to be without Rashad Bateman for the rest of the year. Like, grab that net and catch that beautiful butterfly, pal.
I'm also wondering, like, the Packers were so, like, vocal about how much they tried to get Chase Claypool last week. So why not make a big play for Odell Beckham if that's a position that you are so desperate for help at, that you're telling everyone how close you were to getting a guy a week ago that went to your division rival.
I also feel like after Sunday, Odell could have more leverage in that situation.
Yeah, I'd say so. Also, at this point, if you're Odell, do you really want those problems in Green Bay? Because it does not seem like it's
absolutely not.
I don't know.
I was about to say, you couldn't pay me to play in Green Bay, but no one's paying me to play anywhere.
A savior complex, though, where like he probably thinks that he could unlock the Aaron Rodgers that we all know and love just by being a consistent downfield threat. But like, coming off an injury, that's a really tough position to be in.
No, he, as a wide receiver, you better go get saved somewhere. Matt Stafford was getting, like, you ain't saving that Aaron Rodgers, not this season.
So we'll wait and see on that, but that feels like it's going to have to come to a head sometime soon for him to get on a roster and have enough time to be impactful down the stretch of this season. Let's get to that. This one, fascinating. So the Jets are 6-3 right now, and back on August 21st, the only person who accurately predicted that was at NoonerNation on Twitter. He went and did the Jets 2022 coin flip prediction, where he went and predicted every game, win or loss, based on a coin flip for the New York Jets going into the season. And so far has accurately projected the win-loss record for every week. The coin flip is currently 9-0 over this last stretch here. And so my question is, are we riding with Nooner Nation for the remainder of the season after the bye that the Jets have coming up this weekend?
No.
Yes, Charlotte. And
why?
Can you pick my Powerball numbers, please? Like, someone.
Do you think that he can do you think that that's like luck just to me, I'm like, oh, he's like run out of statistical luck. It's all gonna come crashing down now.
Haven't you ever gone on like a bet heater and like you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna see this thing through.
Right.
Like,
I've never, that's never happened to me, Jess. I've never been so lucky.
So I'll say this. Tell me what you guys think about this. And Charlotte, I feel like this may appeal to you a little bit. So coming off of the bye week,
let me preface that. I feel like I came across really negative. I want it to work. I want him to be right. I just don't think it's gonna. Okay.
Well, it does serve you. Coming off the bye, it has them losing to the Patriots on the road, losing at home versus Chicago, and then rattling off a 5-game win streak that would have them beating the currently, I believe, 7-1 or 8-1 Minnesota Vikings, the Buffalo Bills on the road, Detroit, Jacksonville, and then the Seattle Seahawks before losing the last game of the season on the road at Miami. This would have the Jets finishing the year at 11-6 if Nooner Nation's prediction holds right.
I like it.
There was someone after they went 8-0 who were like, surely this is the end of that luck streak. And then they got this weekend's game wrong and they felt like an idiot. So I'm not going to be that person for week 10. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
Wow. I'll be that person. Also, I'll be the asshole.
I think it's fair.
Except that no, because I want them to lose to the Patriots. So it's going to come. It'll work. I believe in Nooner Nation.
Nooner Nation really Miyagi'd the shit out of you, Charlotte.
Yeah, wow.
I feel like it's a coin flip for all those mid-tier football teams. So it's kind of like just strategy.
It is just strategy. It's the bounce of the ball. It's every football cliche that exists. So big ups to Nooner Nation. Lord knows my picks on this show haven't been so sweet so far. So maybe we'll just ride Nooner Nation from here on out and try and make everyone money. We'll have to see what he's done against the spread. But let's finish up with the third. People Magazine did the thing. They dropped the sexiest man alive, which means that what's his name? Blake Shelton trends every year when this happens, because at one point I think People Magazine named him sexiest man alive, and people have not forgotten that slight. Chris Evans is this year's People's sexiest man alive. Unsurprising, Chris Evans, unbelievably handsome. I am personally most fond of the Knives Out Chris Evans and his wonderful sweater from that movie.
Yes, we saw that together.
Oh, we did.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. I think we left work and just went to the movies.
Yeah, I did that a lot when I worked at Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, that
It was
feels
next to a
right.
movie theater.
Big ups. But Chris Evans, while I do appreciate how attractive he is, not the one I want to talk about. Instead, I want to talk about two bodies that we got to see in primetime this last week. Kirk Cousins, iced out Kirk Cousins on the Vikings plane after their victory over Washington, was seen wearing every chain of all of his teammates and dancing around like someone's dad who got dressed up by all their friends. He was shirtless, and I was a little bit shocked at how put together Kirk Cousins appeared. Quarterbacks aren't the guys that we always assume have to have the best bodies in the world. And then in the mimic of that, we saw Adam Schefter as part of the Monday Night Countdown crew out on the field before that, mimicking that. And I saw Shefty pop the top off and was stunned that a guy who has to spend as much time in front of his phone and screen as Shefty does actually held it together. So my question to everybody is, who are you more surprised is in good shape, Adam Schefter or Kirk Cousins?
May I first here?
Absolutely.
Let's back up 1 second. Chris Evans on the front cover of the Men's Health or whatever the hell magazine, he has a clavicle, he has a clavicle tattoo like on his like trap clavicle. It's like a compass. Wasn't expecting that. Just wanted to give some ink talk real quick. But outside of that, Kirk Cousins knows what he puts in his body. I mean, let's not forget he's an anti-vaxxer. I wasn't surprised to see him all high and tight. I wasn't surprised to see him all high and tight. I was surprised to see Shefty, like, and shouts out to whoever's producing him that has him ready to do these things. Like there was no love handles in sight on Shefty. Like, I know it's cold, and I know when it's cold outside, the skin's tight. That's what it's kind of nice to go outside when it's cold. You know, you get things like really, and I'm sure you did some push-ups and some sit-ups, but Shefty, like how terrible of dancing that he was doing, I could not even pay attention because I was just looking at how he looked like a little rocket power person. Like, he's like a.
He was put together. Shefty did well for himself, and I was very impressed because in his profession, I don't imagine there's a ton of time to work out. So I appreciate him having that balance in his life, and I was very proud to see that for Adam.
We were having dinner, and the TV's like, it was, you can see it from where my boyfriend was sitting, and I was sitting there, and he was like, "Oh my God," like we were having a conversation, and he was like, "I'm sorry, what is happening?" And I looked, and I got up, and I went and I turned the volume up, like really, and I was screaming at my tab. I was like, "What is happening?" I was like, "What?" I was so shocked. I was so shocked to see that. And yeah, I mean, I think it's the kind of thing where I think Shefty thought he looks pretty good these days. And he might have even suggested that he do that.
I was just going to say, I wonder if he pitched it so he could show off the goods.
Look, when you look good, you're like, someone's got to see this. Why not like millions of people?
Well, I don't think his producer was like, "Hey, Adam, are you okay taking your shirt off?" I think he probably had to have been the one to have pitched that. The thing I was the most surprised by was like how short both of their torsos are. They both have incredibly small torsos.
Well, I mean, Adam Schefter is, not the tallest guy in the world.
He's probably a lot shorter than me. But yeah, I don't know. That was the main thing that stood out to me.
Jess, my takeaway to the pec, the like chest to neck ratio is very small. Sorry, continue.
I was just going to say I was struck by how few Marcus Freeman People Magazine Photoshop covers I saw on Twitter. I only saw one. And it said, I'll show you. It was from this Twitter user, Joe_Pa. It says, yeah, I mean, that might just be their name. Might be an unfortunate coincidence, but it's a People Magazine Photoshop, and it says best tight end in the country, and it's Marcus Freeman's butt.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a bad shot of it, honestly, but I like the concept of it.
Brandon's got better ones saved in his phone.
Photoshops, that's all I'm saying.
I think we should have People Mag hire us to do a sports edition. But only among personnel, like not athletes, like but people in the sport, like sexiest man alive in the sports world who's not an athlete.
Could you imagine?
Well, he's a former athlete.
You run into a lot of gray area.
It'd be so hard running that photo.
Like to run into Toto Wolff's gray areas.
Oh my God.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't either.
Neither do I, but
I mean it. This podcast, sir, had a lot of gray areas, and we hope you enjoyed all of them. If you did, Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review Gojo wherever you get your podcast and leave us that rating. Make sure you check out Charlotte Wilder as a part of the Ultimate College Football Road Trip most weekends with the folks at Fox Sports. Charlotte, do you guys know where you're going next?
Texas A&M. Oh.
If they were like, you're going back, I'd be like, yay! It's the next game is USC UCLA.
Ooh, all right, very nice. Big Ten showdown.
And I was going to be like, Mike, are you around? Let's hang.
But he's not.
But you're not because it's college football.
Yeah, games.
Anyway, and then finish out at Michigan Ohio State.
Ooh.
Damn. All right. Strong matchups to finish.
I'm
off the
considering for content just wearing a Michigan sweatshirt around Ohio State and being like, let's see what happens, but I don't want to get murdered. So
Don't do that.
I'm not going to do
it. Can you
I think it's a good idea.
Can you manifest like DTR scoring like 5 touchdowns against USC? Because nothing would make me happier than having them have their second loss of the season going into the Notre Dame game.
Yes, absolutely.
Playoff. Would love it.
Really?
It's at the Rose Bowl, so you know.
I always
I
want them to
like
be undefeated
DTR.
going into the game.
He's been a football player for like 7 years at UCLA, and like
yes, he is the Drew Timme of college football.
I really love that for him. But yeah, Brandon, I don't want Notre Dame. I feel like now that they have like the signature win of the season, I don't really care if they knock USC out of the playoff or not. It'd be funnier if USC's just out of the playoff and I don't have to think about it anymore.
That's fair.
I do, in terms of like players being in college forever, I think that one gift the pandemic did give us was a lot more of those, of like 6, 7 year, like you got Hendon Hooker, like these guys who you're like, oh, you never stopped. And those two weird years, I think really helped us out.
6th and 7th year seniors have been a gift to college football. Shout out to the 29 and 30-year-old punters that the Australian kicking group has produced of us. Pro Kick Australia has been a gift to college football players that are now closer to being my peers than they are their actual teammates' peers. Make sure you also check out Golic and Smetty, wherever you get your podcasts. My father, Mike Golic Sr., Jessica Smetana, as well as Jess over on the Dan Lebitard show. Jess, are you and Kate also off the looking glass? Is there a new upcoming season for that coming soon?
Yes, coming soon. We also have a Formula One race recap on Sunday with Spencer Hall on the Lebitard and Friends YouTube channel, the Brazilian Grand Prix. Very excited for that. And yeah, like you said, Mike, Golic and Smetty / Gojo and Smetty this week will be out when you're listening to this podcast.
Yes, if you enjoyed me and Jess talking with Charlotte and Brandon today, you can get even more of that over on the Golic and Smetty tab there as I sub in for Dad. So all very exciting things. We appreciate you guys coming by. Thanks so much to everyone who listened. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
Bye.